language then that sets the stage for you walking away with the listing.
Yes. Yes.
So when we list the home, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, that type of language.
Right. Right. We should get started. We're going to need to get started because of your time frame when we do this. And so you're talking, it's assumption close.
ABC, always be closing.
Yeah, that's it. I never used that. I never thought of that. That's good. So let me just kind of just look at my list here and get consensus about the facts and their needs. I think I talked about that a little bit, but make sure everybody's understanding why you're selling when you need to.
Sure.
And then you're going to get into the facts of the property, the comparable sales. That's obviously, you got to be prepared.
Sure.
Do your homework. That's important. And we talked about assuming the order. And just assume you're going to go forward with it. Just continue through. Talk about, well, this Friday, I want to have the broker's open house. We need to have the property ready by Wednesday. Is that something that can work for you? And, they might look at each other and say, well, not this week, maybe next week.
Sure.
Okay, we can do that. We can set it up. But
now you've engaged them.
That's right. That's right. So you're getting them to commit to certain
and making decisions on timing.
Yeah,
exactly. I think that's important.
Exactly. So I don't want to take no for an answer when I walk out. We're there to get the information. So what I do, I wouldn't say, are you ready to list with me?
Sure.
No. Let's do the paperwork. And I'm now taking notes again. Okay, we're going to have the open house on Friday, October 20th, or whatever the situation is. We're going to put the property on the market at this price, because we've talked about that.
Sure.
I'm skipping through a lot of fast areas.
Sure.
But you've spent some time talking about market and the pricing and all of that. And now you're going to move forward and say, would you be comfortable if we put the home on the market for $759? How do you feel about that price? All of those are decisions that they need to make, and you're making those decisions with them.
And sometimes it takes a few of those conversations or those sentences to get them to where they need to be to sign the contract.
Right.
So how long do you go until you decide, I'm not going to take this listing today?
I guess I do. Again, I'm assuming we are until they tell me otherwise. So they might say.
So do you let them tell you no once or multiple times?
Multiple times.
My goodness, you're hard. You are tough. I don't think you're walking out the door without the listing.
I'm trying not to.
Good for you. Okay, good.
The rule of thumb is you don't stop until you've heard no 3 times.
Holy smokes! Yeah. I like that rule.
And
I'm going to use that one. That's really good. I think it's
not that harsh.
I think I'm going to win some more listings that way. No, I don't think it's harsh. I think it's really good. Good.
Yeah. So I think that's really what it's all about. If you're going to walk out without the listing, you need to know why. What's preventing them from
listing
forward.
today?
Yeah.
And you ask them, I would say.
Oh, absolutely.
What's holding you back from moving forward today?
Right. Well, we're going to interview another agent. Tell me about that. Open-end questions are so important. Tell me about that. Those words, oh my gosh, they'll give you so much information.
Sure. So it's not a direct question. It's letting them.
Could you elaborate on that a little bit?
Yeah, then they have to.
Yeah. You look at them funny when they say they're going to
You're going to
somebody else?
Yeah. But I'm the best. Yeah. How could you possibly be talking to someone else? Good.
So that's really, I think we've really narrowed it down. If you are walking out without the listing, what do you think you want to do?
You're asking them.
You want another appointment.
Set another appointment.
Yeah. If you can.
That's a good idea. Yeah. When do you think you'll be ready to make a decision?
Right.
Or if they're interviewing multiple agents, when is the last interview?
Well, maybe they say they want to sleep on it. So I just say, well, listen, I'll just sleep on the couch while you sleep on it. And then wake me up when you
let me know. I'll be asleep right over here if you don't mind turning the TV on.
Exactly.
Good. I like that. I think that's a really good idea. Well, so let's back up a little bit because we do still have plenty of time. And I just want to remind everyone that if you have any questions for Janet, please type them in and I'll be happy to ask her. So let's just go back a little bit. So I do my presentation a little bit different. So maybe you and I can communicate a little bit on that. So as far as my presentation goes, I bring the book that I was telling you about, but I almost never open it. Occasionally I open it. I don't go page up to page. And by the way, I'm sharing this because this is what you and I talked about to share both.
Right.
this doesn't mean that the way I do it is right or wrong, or the way Janet does it is right or wrong, because there's so many different styles, and the style has to be what's comfortable for the agent. Not, it can't feel canned, it can't feel like you've copied someone else, it has to feel like it's you.
Absolutely.
And for me, I like to go into the appointment, I try to do a one-step appointment, so that's my goal, is to get as much information as I can over the phone as far as their motivation goes, if they're interviewing anyone else, when they'll be making a decision, where they're going, that sort of thing. So I try to get as much information as in the beginning as I can. And actually we'll talk about the simplicity of a home versus a complexity of a home as well, because that makes a big difference.
That's right.
So I think a two-step presentation is very much in line if it's not a cookie-cutter home. If it's going to take a lot of research and important for you to get in the door in the beginning to see everything, then you leave to go do your research. It's just the way you do it. And that's pretty common and a lot of times very needed. In some areas, like if you're a heavy farmer, which I'm a heavy farmer, maybe I know all the competition. Maybe I've sold a lot of it. So I can already talk intelligently about the last 5 model matches that have sold. So there isn't much I need to do other than saying, okay, you guys remodeled the kitchen, the last sale didn't, that sort of thing. So it's easy for me to do maybe a one-step. A one-step. Yeah. So in some cases, I would do a 2-step, but I very much try to take the listing when I'm there the first time around and bring as much of the comparables as I can based on what I know about the home. I have certainly been stuck at the appointment and not prepared, and the home is completely different than I thought, or the tax record was wrong, which is a key point to check on the tax record or question them. So I understand your house is 1711 square feet. Is that the case? Is it a 3-bedroom, 2.5 bath? Very often the tax record's incorrect, and so obviously that's important to know when you go in on the appointment. And then once I'm there, I like to find out, once I walk through the home, which is the first thing I do, walk through the home just like you, build that rapport, find out what they love about the home. Then I want to find out what is important to them in an agent. Because to me, I feel like people are in a hurry. They don't have the time to spend a lot of time on a listing presentation. So it feels like and maybe I am mirroring myself. So maybe it's actually me that doesn't want to be there for a long time and I want to get in and out. But I like to find out what is it that's important. So the things that I find that are important to sellers are price. Maybe that is the #1 concern. They're going to go with the agent who tells them that the house is worth the most. Then I know what I need to deal with while I'm at the presentation. Wow, they're way overboard on price. I need to focus my attention on that. Maybe it's commission. That's a big one these days. Yeah. Maybe it's all about commission. Okay, let's dive into that. Because what I find is so often it's one-pointed. Their big concern is one thing.
One thing.
It's commission. It's how are you going to market this home,
or moving fast, or moving slow.
Yes, yeah. Maybe it's this. Our last agent listed our home, and we never spoke to them again. So to them, the most important thing is communication. Guess what you're going to talk about a lot? We're going to talk about the means of communication. You're going to find out, do they want to be texted? Do they want to be emailed? Do they want phone calls? How often? And setting that up, because that's what they want to hear. So that's how I like to come about it. Am I interviewing? Is it about competition? What is it about? Then I delve in on that. Some people are all about marketing, and then you find out that they're maybe all about print advertising. And that's traditional marketing, and there's nothing wrong with traditional marketing. I think there's a place for traditional marketing. But the abundance of online buyer-centered housing information, of course, has reshaped consumer buying behavior today. So it turns out that the traditional process has reshaped the real estate buying process. So we maybe need to turn them from the print advertising to maybe social media, online advertising, all that kind of thing, because for me, I don't like to do a bunch of print advertising. It's very expensive and ineffective. So maybe I need to sell them on why it's important to do more online sort of marketing and show them statistics. That's where people are buying their home these days. They are calling their realtor once they've narrowed down their search. And they've narrowed down their search on what? The internet. So there's lots of those kinds of things. I think we have a question, so I'm going to look at a question from Pablo, and it says, would you run comps in front of the potential client? So I'm thinking that he means you'd have your laptop there with you or your iPad with you.
Well, I would hope that you would be prepared before you ever walk in the door.
Even on appointment number one?
Well, an appointment number one, I would not do it.
Not do it. Okay.
No.
Okay.
I think that you need to demonstrate to the client that you do homework.
Sure.
It doesn't come out of your head.
Sure.
Because then that's easy. Mm-hmm. Anybody can do it, right? Mm-hmm. What you want to emphasize is that your expertise and your homework and you're narrowing it down to their specific home, I think is very important. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So I don't know if you do, but I don't get into comps on the computer when I'm sitting with them. Mm-hmm. Unless you might want to show them.
Sure.
Let me show you a comparable sale here that closed last week.
Sure.
And you want to actually show them the facts, all of it. That would be great.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. I mean,
don't
typically
kind of
either.
An assistant.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure. That makes sense. And I don't typically either. I think that's a good question. But if I need to, I will, because you have at your fingertips, if you have your laptop or your iPad there, you have at your fingertips the pictures of the other listings. Mm-hmm. And sometimes why I like showing other listings is to show the difference in the quality of photography between my listing and the other listing down the street, and why they would want to go with me because I have a professional photographer come in versus the other agent who took pictures from their smartphone and uploaded them. Yeah. That to me is enormously different
and that's your
as well.
That's what really is your listing appointment, your listing presentation.
Sure.
Whether it's verbally and showing them on your iPad, you're doing your listing presentation while you're sitting.
Sure.
Sitting with them at the table.
At the table, not at the couch.
Yeah.
Good. Cool. Well, let's go to your 8 tips for giving winning listing presentations. Obviously, you've been doing this for so many years. You are incredibly successful, and I personally know that you take almost 100% of the listings that you go on because you are so good. So give us some pointers, give us some last minute tips.
Yeah, let's just quickly review these. It's pretty much everything we've talked about already, but set the expectations up front. The 2-part appointment or a 1-part appointment, whatever, but set up the expectations. What do you expect? You expect all sellers to be present. That's what you're doing. You're expecting to walk out of there getting their house on the market. Gather your data. Know the client, know the property, know their motivation. And you've talked about that. This is really just a review.
Sure.
Build your relationship. That's, if you don't build a relationship to begin with, before you start talking about the comps, that's not going to work.
I agree.
You've got to have a relationship. Know your audience. Know who you're talking to. What's their motivation? What's their hot button? Which you just spent a little bit of time talking about. What is their hot button?
And that takes asking the right questions.
Asking the questions. Absolutely. Knowing that. You've got to know your audience. You need to do your homework. Be prepared. That's obviously preparation is all about.
Sure.
If you walk in there and you can't talk the talk, you're not going to walk out of there without the listing. So
I want to point something out on that because that's such a good point. So this, I think, probably most agents have come across this in their career if they've been selling for a long time. I had a past client that thought that I was the end-all, be-all agent. He thought I did such a fantastic job when I sold his house the first time. And several years later, he called me and said, Gina, I'm now going to sell. Can you come over and talk to me? And I went on that appointment completely unprepared. I absolutely assumed I'd walk away with the listing. Had the listing in hand. All I did was bring comparables. That's it. I was ready to sign the listing and put the price in on what we decided. And he wouldn't sign the listing and said that he was interviewing 2 other agents after me. And I did not get that listing. I did not get the listing.
Yeah.
Huge.
You took it for granted.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
And you didn't go back to the basics. We all, as experienced people, do that sometimes.
It was a very tough mistake to make, but it was a great learning experience, and I'll never walk into a listing again assuming that it's mine.
That's right.
And not prepared.
Yeah.
Even on those ones that I'm almost 100% sure that it's my listing, I'm going to go prepared because they have an expectation of that.
That's right. Absolutely. So, okay, so communicate your findings. Obviously, You're the advisor. You've got to talk about price. If they had a price that was so out of line, you're the advisor. You've got to guide them. So make sure that you communicate your findings in the best way you can.
They're hiring you for your professional advice.
You're the advisor. You're not just saying, well, what do you want to put it on the market for? No, you're the advisor. You're going to help them say, here's what I would recommend. How do you feel about that? You know, and go from there. Be clear and concise. And we talked about this before, but assume the order. Walk out of there with a listing agreement. And a handshake, and you're going to work to get their house on the market.
That's my favorite one. Assume the order. I hope everyone got that. Assume the order. I think that's so cool. Well, good. This has been such a treat to have you. The audience, it's such a treat for the audience to have you, but even I feel like more so that I got to be the moderator here.
It's been fun.
It has been fun, and thank you so much for being here. Thank you for always generously giving your time to the agents and sharing your knowledge. And a personal thanks for the last 17 years of sharing, of selling real estate myself. Thanks for still picking up the phone and answering all my questions, because I still have them. So thank you so much for being here, Janet. All right, Mom. Okay, so before we get started on our next guest, Matt Cord, which I'm really excited to have as well, I'll briefly talk about November Seeds of Greatness. And if anyone has not had an opportunity to do Seeds of Greatness, I cannot tell you what an enormous impact this will have on your business. First of all, it is with Kathy Allerton and Keith Robinson. What a duo. These two together, individually they are phenomenal, but coming together in a room and being able to help you put your business plan together for 2013 to create your vision, this would be an amazing thing for you to go to. There's 2 different dates that you can attend. Number 1, November 14th in the Bay Area, and on November 15th in the Wine Country. So I so encourage you to be at one of these. I know you'll get a tremendous amount out of it. Okay, so I'm excited to introduce Matt Cord. He is the manager of the Berkeley office, and Matt, you've been selling real estate for 10 years, correct?
That's right.
And managing for 7?
That's right.
7, okay. So it's an honor to have you here today, and we're going to talk about third quarter market update. So thanks for being here.
No, thanks for having me. That's a tough act to follow. I get to follow that with a bunch of numbers, which I know everybody gets excited about. Yeah, so here's you know, Gina and I were talking briefly before this started about not necessarily being numbers people, but I think it's one of the things that's absolutely vital for 2 reasons. One is we've got national media that loves to put sensational headlines out there, but they also tend to be about 3 to 6 months behind what we see as trends. The other part of it is there's not one of us that doesn't come across the question, how's the market? And the data really, really helps you have a concise view of what's going on. So let's start with our first slide, which is the, you know, this is basically how to answer what's going on in the market today. We've got Q2 and Q3. Q2 is the bar on the bottom, and Q3 is the bar on the top. You know, what we want to take a look at here is well, let's start with the good stuff. The median home price is up, and it's up significantly from last year to this year. We are trending in the right direction. I don't think anybody has felt that, you know, we're not recovering and we haven't had a nice bounce off the bottom. But if we slide over a bit here, we're starting to see the amount of homes sold is declining. Q2 was pretty decent. Q3 slowing down. One of the things that you have to look for is these are the types of things that make headlines, right? Are pending sales down? Is the recovery slow? We are having a lack of inventory issue, and I think anybody who's been out there for all of 10 minutes has more buyers.
Feeling it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely.
You've got 10 buyers and no houses, and that seems to be continuing.
And 5 of them want the same product.
Exactly.
Which makes it rather challenging.
Right, and then nobody wants to bid over.
Right.
So other than that, it's perfect.
Exactly.
You know, one of the things that we really have to pay attention to when we're having these conversations with our clients also is that, again, they are getting their information 3 to 6 months behind. So it's really, really important that you are having consistent updates with your clients and what's going on in the market. I think one of the areas that everybody is trying to push is how do I get more listings? I think if you had a conversation with somebody to say that the Bay Area median home price is up 15%, there might be more people willing to test the market.
That's a big impact.
It's huge. It's huge. And most of the numbers are trending the right way. Fewer days on market, that's helpful. We're seeing multiple offers all over the place. But again, we are going to be at the whim of how much inventory we have, and we've actually tracked this for a while. We've had 17 straight months of declining inventory.
That's unbelievable.
Just incredible.
Sure.
So here it is. If you felt like there were less homes to sell, you're right. It's down pretty significantly from Q3 2011 to Q3 2012. We are down 65%. I'm sure all of us are out there having conversations with our sphere and our database to say that now's a good time to list your home, but now is a really, really good time to list your home.
Isn't it always?
It's always, of course. And don't take no for an answer.
Today for real.
Right.
But really is, yeah.
It's incredible. So we really are seeing, most of the time when we look at, the recoveries that we've had in the past, they've been a two-step recovery. Usually we will see sales pick up, and then we will see price pick up. Last year we saw sales pick up. This year we're starting to see a price increase. Some of this is going to be artificially inflated because there's not enough out there right now, so we may see this price go up and down, but we've trended pretty consistently in the right way. So, I mean, if you're having conversations with people going, I want to wait 3 months from now, it's a hard argument to make that it's going to be substantially better than what we've got right now. This is the pending home sale slide. It's a good indicator of really it's kind of trying to get trends by the rearview mirror. It's a little bit hard to have this push what's going to happen next week, next month.
Sure.
But one of the things you'll see is you will have a Yahoo Real Estate that will say, oh my God, pending home sales are down for the third straight month. Is the recovery over? You know the answer to that.
Right.
We don't have enough homes to sell.
Right.
So we're absolutely seeing the pending home sales slide, but it's not due to a lack of interest.
Sure. And it's telling just because the median price is up.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
It's showing that we're getting multiple offers on all of these homes.
And I think we've seen that. Most of the people that are getting listings now and pricing correctly, right, that's still a key factor, but those that are pricing correctly, they're seeing multiple offers. I mean, we've had people who've tested the market as a short sale and have actually come up to an equity sale due to the amount of competition we've had. So that hadn't happened in the past few years.
Yeah. I just want to touch on the fact that you talked about that people... never mind. I forgot my train of thought. Carry on. Sorry about that.
See, that's how exciting data is.
I can't even talk on this data.
Yeah, Gina fell asleep for a second, but we woke her up. So mortgage rates. If this continues, I'm going to have to get a different graph because this has just been a free fall here.
No doubt.
It's really, this is one of those things that's not a mystery to anybody. People realize that money is as cheap as it's ever been. Hence the reason we've got so many buyers. There's so many people that are willing to test the market. Again, I think when you're having conversations with your clients about how cheap money actually is and these favorable terms that you can get, we haven't quite worked out all of the kinks in how you get the loan, right? It's still a hard time. We've got people that are very interested but may not qualify for rates that are like this. But those that are qualified, this is the lifetime purchase, right? This is the one that you buy this house and you may never give it up. So this is for all the way through October 1st. We've seen a slight tick up. One of the things, too, I think is really vital, and I'm sure everybody does this, is there's two numbers we want to focus on, right? You do want to focus on price, but you also want to focus on interest rates. And one of the things that we see is it takes forever for rates to come down, and it takes a very, very short time for them to go back up. So just be careful. Make sure that there isn't somebody who's trying to time the market because those that did it by accident. Right. So just keep an eye on it. We do think that rates are going to stay suppressed for a while, but they won't do it forever.
But you never know, and that's very good advice.
Exactly.
And I did wake up. And I do remember what I was going to comment on.
Yeah.
So you had made a comment earlier that said, saying if the home is priced correctly, then the home sells. So I just want to talk about that really quick because what I'm seeing in the market right now is if the home is priced correctly, multiple offers, the home is pending. If you overprice the home, buyers are savvy. They are doing their own homework. They're doing their own research. The house is going to stay on the market. Yeah. So it's the inventory is sort of a mix. The home is either on the market for a week or less or over 30 days because they've not priced it accurately. And to me, it's silly to not price it where the market, near the last comparables because it's going to sell for over anyway. Absolutely. So you're doing the client such a disservice by over listing it and then it'll end up selling for much less. So
Totally.
I'm glad that you made that point.
And I think you guys are, I think in the Bay Area, we're seeing it all together. I mean, our Berkeley office, we're certainly seeing attractive homes that have missed the mark and
Yes.
they just sit. And
Yep.
I think you've got sellers that are going, well, if I get close enough, we'll even take a lower
Sure.
offer. In our area, it just doesn't work that
Right.
way, right? So it's
Absolutely.
one of those, get at maybe slightly below and let the market take it.
Without a doubt.
So this is actually a slide that we've put out at various times. Now, the $100,000 mortgage outside of a few places in a few cities is unrealistic, but borrowing $100,000 at these interest rates becomes very, very clear with this. One of the reasons it's nice to send this out there, and I don't think anybody's got a shortage of buyers, but those that are actually trying to time the market and say, well, what if interest rates fall another eighth of a point or whatever? You can show them, listen, if you purchased a house in 2006, it's nearly $200 per $100,000 less than it was.
It's amazing.
This is just incredible.
Yeah.
And we've seen a steady decline from 2003 to 2012 in the cost of borrowing money.
Sure.
So sometimes you get really simple slides like this that have a really good impact. Half the reason we put these slides together is to help, our agents send something out to their database that at least is somewhat educational.
Sure. That's so telling. It's amazing, the difference in rate and the difference in your mortgage payment. And this is only based on a $100,000 mortgage, which is not relevant for around here. So, multiply this, and it's just incredible. It's funny because I hear a lot of people say, a realtor always says this is the time to buy, right? I mean, how many years can you be in the business and say, oh, this is the time, this is the time? Boy, I have never felt it so much as I do today, that with the rates where they are and the fact that prices have come down so dramatically with the housing crunch, this is totally the time to buy.
It's amazing. I mean, we haven't seen sort of this confluence of events, I think, in years, maybe ever.
Sure.
The hard part, too, is I think that we've all done such a good job at convincing our buyers that now is the time to buy.
Yes.
And now you've got to convince your sellers that now's a great time to sell.
Right.
It's always the trick, right? It's always
so
the trick.
So true.
So this is, you got to love Lawrence Young. The man is paid to be optimistic for all of us, and he clearly is with this quote, which is basically, this time next year, there could be a 10% price appreciation. I wouldn't be surprised by that. I would, but I am totally willing to back him in his statement here. I think what this and then the next slide is pretty telling. We started off 2012 with most of the economists expecting us to be flat. And what we saw was fairly decent appreciation this year, both nationally and locally. And I think really what we're looking at is we are seeing a trend in the right direction. Some of it may be a little bit artificial in the fact that we don't have quite the supply that we need, but I don't see supply hitting such a level in a hurry that we're going to start going flat again.
Sure.
And so you see here the Home Price Expectation Survey. This is actually a survey where they've gone out and asked 100-plus top economists in the country what they think is going to happen, and then they kind of jam all the stuff together and spit out a number. At the beginning of the year, they thought we'd be negative in appreciation. It shows how much they know.
Yeah, no doubt.
And I think going forward, what we're seeing is we are quickly approaching what has been historical appreciation rates. We're getting back to that 3% per year, a much healthier market, and it's going to happen in a hurry. I mean, they've got us getting there 2013, 2014. So we are pushing back to some degree of normalcy. We're certainly not out of the woods. There are distressed sales, but we're trending in the right direction.
Sure, far less distressed sales. That's my experience.
That's right. So that's this last slide here, and I get asked this a lot. What about the shadow inventory? We see articles written on this all the time. What do you think is going to take place?
I can't wait to hear your answer, by the way.
Right, and my crystal ball is just as cloudy as yours. Here's what we're seeing out here. We've done a fairly good job of getting through a lot of the foreclosures. They're not done yet. They have found different ways to dispose of them. The days of having an REO broker with 80, 100 listings is done.
Sure.
Certainly out here. I know. But I think what you're seeing is in judicial states where you actually have to have the court get involved in the foreclosure proceedings, they have many, many months of inventory. So there's a national shadow inventory that people talk about, which is not directly applicable to us. So just be careful when you've got a client that says, well, I'm going to wait because there's a ton of REOs that are going to hit the market.
You
maybe
don't
not
so.
here.
Yeah.
I really think that the West has done a very good job in starting to get through that. Now, short sales are still going to be at play, right? And you can see just from the beginning of this year to the end, nationally, we've gone 35% to 22%. in our area, certainly the counties out here, we have about 35% here that are still distressed. The bulk of that is short. We've got most of those as short sales.
Because they're streamlined now.
Exactly.
They're being able to close these short sales instead of them turning into REOs.
It's a much more efficient process. I mean, we have a couple of great short sale teams in our office who've really got this thing down to a science. But what we're starting to see is it is becoming a much more acceptable means of moving your property, and the banks realize that they're going to save money doing it this way than letting it go to foreclosure.
And I think people, the consumer or the sellers out there, are more knowledgeable. Before, they just didn't understand, so they let their home go to foreclosure.
Right.
Now they understand the process. They get to read about it. The process is out there, so they see it all the time, and they know that it's, in most cases, such a better avenue to go for them.
Absolutely.
So it just, and it's also streamlined much better now that.
You know, and I think the big thing too is there's always a stigma in saying, okay, I can't do this anymore. And I think that stigma starts to wane when more and more people go, this is the best option for me. This is what I've got to do. And as we've had more talented agents get up to speed on how the short sales work, banks more on board, this has become a really viable process. And it just means the churn is going to be faster.
Sure. That makes sense.
So that's what I've got for the update so far. Hopefully some of this is you guys are, at least 3 or 4 of you are still awake. And I would encourage you, as this show gets sent out to anybody, to use these slides. If anybody is interested in getting these slides from us, we do them on a monthly basis. Feel free to ask us, and we'll just send you the whole deck so you can use it as you need to.
And Matt, you've been a guest before.
Yeah.
And I have a feeling you're going to be a guest a lot of times in the future. It's awesome to have you on the show. And this material, although is intimidating for most of us because it's a bunch of graphs, it's critical. And I see that it's so important for 2 reasons. Number one, and you touched on this a little bit earlier, is always when you're in the real estate industry of some facet, people say, how's the market? And I get it everywhere I go. I walk into a restaurant and I see someone I know, how's the market? Are things getting better? That's the funny one. Are things getting better? It's so interesting. But having this information, Matt, that you've provided us, allows us to speak intelligently on exactly how the market is. And where what the trends are doing, what's happening. And it puts us in such a better light to have this information. So I'm so appreciative of you being here and sharing this with us. And then the other thing is, and please listen carefully to this, everybody that's on the call, this is a huge avenue to pick up the phone and call your clients, whether they're buyers or they're sellers. To having this data and sharing what's happening, sharing the trends, even sharing the graphs, emailing this to your clients is such an enormous reason to pick the phone up and get this going, because so many people are on the fence right now. And maybe this truly is the right time, but they don't know it. And if nothing else, you've initiated contact, you've stayed in close communication with your clients, and to me, that's huge. You're staying in the forefront of your clients.
And I think it becomes even more key for somebody like you who does a lot of farming, because you can get really granular with this. And if you're excited about the price appreciation that's taking place in, over the last 6 or 8 months, your clients absolutely are too. So.
Matt, you totally rock. Thank you so much for being here. And to all the callers, thank you very much for being on the call today. We always appreciate you listening. We do have a couple of upcoming calls, of course, every Monday. Our next Monday morning radio show is Building and Running a Top Producing Team, and that's Ron and Jane Pavelka from Cloverdale office that will be doing that. We've got one on November 5th, Cementing Your Brand in Web 2 Market. I love this topic. Herman Chan is so fun to listen to. He is entertaining, and you will be very much entertained by him. He's always a lot of fun. And then, of course, November 12th, Streamlining the Short Sale Process from Initiation to Approval. Who wouldn't get something out of a subject like that? So I encourage you to attend the upcoming calls, and thank you again so much for being on today, and have a great rest of the week.